So thank you for joining, everyone. So we're just going to do a quick introduction and then I'll hand you over to Jenny. As I said before, hopefully Jenny's internet survives this lunchtime session. She is having a few technical difficulties right now. So
Just a few. So I guess just to warn people, the internet's just been coming and going for me just at the wrong time. So yeah, fingers crossed, Jana. I'm really hoping that I can get through an hour session, but yeah, we will see.
yeah. Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining the first IRMS North bi-weekly webinar session. I hope you're all doing well. The topic for today is digital preservation, and your speaker is Jenny Micham. So Jenny is on the right of the screen. Jenny is head of good practice and standards for the Digital Preservation Coalition, and she will introduce the DPC's rapid assessment model. This is a maturity model for digital preservation. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Iram Ditta and I'm on the left of the screen in white, and I'm the North Group Chair. So when I'm not acting as group chair, I'm an information governance operations lead at Latham & Watkins. I know that's a mouthful, apologies. The firm is an international firm. I'm based in the Manchester office, and I service the Information Governance Operations Centre, working alongside the Information Governance team, together with our Technical Services Department, Technology, and our cyber security team. We have a total headcount of 3,000 lawyers worldwide. So yeah, every day is very different. A bit of housekeeping before I call our speaker on the stage today. You're all muted by default. So if you want to chat with myself or Jenny, if you use the chat function, which probably displays to the right of your screen if you have a full screen, or the bottom of your screen if you have a minimized screen. If you want to chat with other members, that's where you would do that as well. If you want to direct any specific questions to either Jenny or I, then please use the question section and I will try and field those questions to Jenny whilst she either in between the session, if it works, or at the end of the session. I hope you enjoy the session, and if you have any comments or feedback that you'd like to share with either Jenny or myself, then please do not hesitate to email me. My email address is north@irms.org.uk. And I'll now hand you over to our speaker, Jenny.
Great, thank you very much. Can you hear me okay? Yep.
We can.
Oh, excellent. And hopefully you can see my screen, my presentation. I just need to click present.
Yes.
Is that all good? Brilliant. It's nice when things work. Hopefully they will continue to work. But I guess if they don't, we'll play it by ear. Okay. So thanks for inviting me to speak today. It's really good to be able to talk about my favourite subject at the moment, which is DPC RAM. So I am, as has already been said, I'm Jenny Micham. I'm head of good practice and standards, and I work for the Digital Preservation Coalition. And this is what I'm going to talk about this lunchtime. So I'll just sort of start off by talking a little bit about what digital preservation is, because I think it's useful just to get that sort of baseline, so we're all singing from the same hymn sheet, as it were. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about the Digital Preservation Coalition, which is the organisation that I work for, as I think that helps set the scene. And also a little bit about a project that I'm working on at the moment with the Nuclear Decommissioning Authority, because this DPC RAM, the Rapid Assessment Model, has actually come directly from that project. So I guess that's all the preamble, and then I'll dive into the real purpose of the presentation, which is to talk about DPC RAM, the Rapid Assessment Model, and hopefully give you enough information so that after this session you can just go away and use it. But I'll tell you a bit about what it is, why we created it, a bit about how to use it and who can use it. And I know we've got an hour planned today. I definitely don't intend on talking for a whole hour, so there will be time at the end for Q&A, and I can actually see the chat as I'm talking, so if you do have questions while I'm talking, then I might see them. There's a chance that I might see them and answer them straight away. So firstly, what is digital preservation? Well, I'm kind of assuming that most of you know this already, but I've taken a definition, or I've adapted a definition from our digital preservation handbook. And it says that digital preservation refers to a series of managed activities necessary to ensure continued access to digital materials for as long as appropriate. And in that definition, I've highlighted those things that I think are most important, and that's that digital preservation is a series of managed activities, so it's not a one-off activity, it's not a random activity, it's very controlled, it's not something that you do just once, it's something that you do kind of periodically over time, so it's an active process of management. And the reason we do it essentially is to ensure continued access. So access is what digital preservation is all about, really, that access is the end goal. And this is about access to digital materials for as long as appropriate. So I think there's sometimes a misconception in our field that we want to keep everything forever, and that's definitely not true. We want to keep things for as long as appropriate. If there comes a point where things need to be deleted, then so be it. And I know that you'll all be very au fait with retention periods and disposal and that kind of thing. We do encourage that. So it also says digital preservation refers to all the actions required to maintain access beyond the limits of media failure or technological and organisational change. I think, again, there's sometimes a misconception that digital preservation is all about obsolete media and obsolete file formats. And actually, I would say that one of the greater challenges perhaps is around organisational change. So if your organisation merges with another one or folds entirely, what happens to the data vein then? And those could be huge threats. I think Penny, around making the slides available, I'm very happy to do so. I've already sent them to Iram, so hopefully they can be circulated later. And there's a much simpler definition here, which just came from one of my colleagues, which says digital preservation is about putting common sense strategies in place to save a lot of effort and pain further down the line. So I quite like that definition, because I think that's what it's about, really. It's about doing stuff now to save headaches later on. So I'm expecting many of you, or perhaps all of you, will already have come across this model, the Open Archival Information System. So this is a simplified version of that model, and this is a reference model that guides our thinking in digital preservation. So everything that's going on inside that blue box there is the activities that happen within a digital archive. And there's various people or groups of people interacting with the digital archive around the outside. So you've got the producer, you've got the people essentially who are creating the information that needs to be preserved at one side. You've got the consumer at the other side, so the people that are wanting to access that information. And you've got management of the digital archive also interacting with it there at the bottom. So there's various processes that need to go on. There's ingest, so that's actually getting stuff into the archive in some controlled fashion. There's data management, which is all about managing the metadata, creating adequate metadata, looking after it so that we can actually do our jobs properly. There's archival storage, because of course digital materials need somewhere to sit, and in digital preservation they need multiple places to sit. So we tend not to just keep something in one place, we tend to keep it in various different places as a way of reducing the risks. And there's also going to be a way of accessing the data, so there'll be an access system somewhere. There'll be administration going on within the archive. And you might be thinking, well, yeah, that's all well and good, but why is that so special? You know, this is kind of the core stuff that IRMS system has, isn't it? You have a way of getting data in, you have a way of getting data out, you have metadata, you have storage. And I think what makes digital preservation differ from a records management system is the bit that sits along the top. So the bit at the top there, called preservation planning, And that's how we manage the information for the long term, and that's how we think about the longevity of different formats. We have a technology watch where we try and see into the future and work out which formats are going to last the longer and which actions we need to carry out to mitigate all the risks. I guess the other difference is that material that sits in a digital archive is generally pretty static, so it's not material that's being actively edited by anyone. It kind of sits there and it stays as is. So that's what digital preservation is. I always quite like to talk about what digital preservation isn't as well, because I think that can be equally useful. So these are all misconceptions, I guess, that I've heard from people when they talk about digital preservation. It's not just about backing things up. It's not the same as digitisation. It's not a one-off activity. I would say it's definitely not a solved problem. So it's not something that we have kind of a magic solution for that we can just roll out. And there isn't a clear finish line. So I often show this little picture at the bottom and then explain why this picture's wrong. In fact, we're just commissioning some new diagrams at the DPC, and I've specifically asked someone to create a diagram for us that displays digital preservation as being more of a relay race. So actually it's more about, rather than people rushing to a finish line, which is digital preservation heaven, it's about people passing a baton on to the next generation. So you do digital preservation for a bit and then you hand it over to the next generation who do digital preservation for a bit longer. And there is never that finish line. There's never that point at which you say, right, digital preservation is done. It's just a continuous process that always needs doing. So that diagram hopefully should be with us for the next presentation. So yeah, that's digital preservation. A bit about the Digital Preservation Coalition, which is where I work. So we don't do digital preservation ourselves. What we do is support our members to do digital preservation. So we're totally funded by our members. We're led by our members as well. So they sit on our board, on our various subcommittees, and they tell us what to do. We're a not-for-profit organisation. We've now got 10 members of staff, so we've grown quite a lot in the last year. We were founded in 2002, very much UK focused, but now we're international. So we have perhaps about a quarter or a third of our members are not in the UK, and we have just opened an office in Australia. So that's quite exciting. We've now, as of last week, got 103 members. So that news is hot off the press. To give you some information about our members, so this is a big slide of logos that is not complete because I think at last 4 members on this slide, so apologies. But I think I like to show this because it gives a real sense of the range of member organisations that we have and the variation in them as well, I think. So when we started off, we were very focused on the GLAM sector. So galleries, libraries, archives and museums were like the core of our members. And then we started getting a lot of universities joining, a lot of higher education, academic institutions, because they all saw the need for digital preservation. But I think in the last 5 years or so, things have really changed in that we're getting many members who don't work in those sectors. So we're getting members who work in businesses like Unilever and Bacardi. I'm getting members from banks, so we have Lloyds there and the European Central Bank and HSBC. We have members from organisations such as the Nuclear Decommissioning Authority, and I'll talk a little bit about them later on. But I think what it's useful to say is that basically anyone who's got a long-term need to manage information correctly and successfully is very, very welcome to join us. So we're happy to talk to any of you about that. This is our mission. So as I said, we enable our members to do digital preservation. We don't do it for them or do it ourselves. And we have these 6 strategic aims: advocacy, community engagement, workforce development, capacity building, good practice and good governance. And this is how we fulfill our brief, essentially, how we fulfill our mission. I'm not going to talk much about this because I do want to get on and talk about DPC RAM. But I like showing this because it just gives a sense of some of the activities we carry out under some of those strands that I mentioned. So I work mostly in the good practice and standards area. So for me, understanding member needs is really important, talking to vendors, but also looking at certification and accreditation. So working out whether, like how people can measure themselves, how they can measure how well they're doing. And DPC RAM definitely comes under that. Okay. Some current work of interest that we're doing. So you might be interested to know that we have an EDRMS task force, EDRMS preservation task force. We kicked that off a couple of months ago. So about, I'd say maybe 50% of our members have this challenge of how to preserve records from within an EDRMS. So we're helping them with that. We're currently organising a briefing day looking at how to preserve semi-active records or semi-current records. So these may again be records that are within an EDRMS system. We're trying to organise a database preservation workshop. Some of you might be interested in that. That's going to be in July, but will just be for members, I believe. We have a handbook, which I already mentioned when I showed you the definition of digital preservation. So that's free and available for all of you to look at. We recently released some new online digital preservation training along with the National Archives. It's called Novice to Know-How, if you're interested in that. And another thing that I've been working on a lot is a digital preservation project with the Nuclear Decommissioning Authority. I'll just tell you a little bit about that. So I was actually employed at the DPC specifically to work with the Nuclear Decommissioning Authority. So here's some of the holiday snaps from the last year as I've been visiting all the exciting sites at Sellafield and Magnox power stations and the nuclear archive over in Wick. Those were in the days where you could visit these places. So just to give a bit of context, the NDA, it's their mission to clean up the UK's nuclear sites safely and securely and cost effectively. I don't need to say much about that apart from to say that obviously their information management requirements are really, really important to them. So decommissioning nuclear sites takes an awful long time. It's a programme of perhaps 100 years, and they need to manage information really effectively over that period, and that's why they've partnered with us to work on this particular challenge. So DPC RAM, the rapid assessment model, actually came out of our work with the NDA. The chap I was working with at the NDA, Martin Robb, he said many times, if you can't measure it, you can't control it. So I think what I was trying to get at there was he needed to know and understand where the NDA is currently in their digital preservation journey in order to think about how to move forward. So it became apparent to us that we needed to use some kind of maturity modelling to assess where the NDA were at the start of their project, and then also to assess where they are at the end of the project, hopefully seeing some kind of improvement, otherwise we've not done our job very well. But also a way of setting goals for the future. So you could say, well, we're currently here, but in 5 years we'd like to be here. And a maturity model seemed like a really good way to fulfill those aims. So
I think we may have lost Jenny for a second due to her internet connection. The video will reconnect automatically if it's possible. Jenny's having some bandwidth issues. Okay, looks like she's lost internet connection entirely. Hopefully we can get Jenny back in a second. Apologies again, everyone, but I suppose these are the challenges that we're having to become acquainted with during the current climate.
Hello.
Hi.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
It's fine, don't worry.
Happen. So, well, I managed to go for about 20 minutes before my computer decided it was coming. So this is progress, but I haven't yet got onto the meat of what I was going to say. So sorry about that. I'm going to share my screen again. Thanks, Yana. Right. So hopefully you can hear me and see this slide. So I'll start talking now about DPC RAM, the rapid assessment model. So it's a new-ish maturity model for digital preservation that we've created. It stands for Rapid Assessment Model. It is applicable for all organisations who have digital content of long-term value, and that's key. And I guess that comes out of the fact that this that we created it with the Nuclear Decommissioning Authority in mind. So they're not your kind of standard audience for digital preservation maturity models, but we wanted this model to be applicable to them and everyone and all of our members. Hopefully all of you too. So it's agnostic to solution and technology, so it doesn't matter, I guess, which piece of software you might be using to hold or manage your digital files. You should be able to apply the model regardless. It's focused very much on continuous improvement, so not a one-off exercise, but something that you would do over time and try and improve. And we like to think of it as a bit of a conversation starter as well. So a way that people could talk about their digital preservation capacity with each other. And we launched it in September last year. So it's available here. Here's the URL, but I'm going to put that up at the end as well. You can Google it as well. So that's on our website. You can see at the bottom of that screenshot, there's a link that says the Rapid Assessment Model, and there's a link that says Digital Worksheet on the web page there. Those are basically the two main things that you need to use it. And they're free to download for anyone, regardless of whether you're a member or not. So why did we actually go about and create this new model rather than using one of the existing ones? Because there is quite a lot of existing maturity models out there for digital preservation. We did find that the existing models didn't seem to work in the context of the Nuclear Decommissioning Authority. So either they were aimed at much more traditional memory institutions, so very much geared towards the archives or library sector, or they were aimed at a particular type of data. So we found some models that were aimed specifically at research data in academic institutions, for example. Others were focused on just one aspect of digital preservation, like technology. So an example of that would be the NDSA levels of digital preservation. It's a model that I like to use a lot, but it just looks at technology. It looks at how what technology and storage that you've got in place to manage your digital materials. It doesn't look at how your organisation is ready to deal with it and what resources you have. And others we found were very much focused on a very particular method of doing digital preservation. So more around, okay, if you use a set of open file formats, then you get full marks. So if you convert everything to PDFA, you've solved the problem, which is very much not what we think. We think that the problem is much more nuanced than that. So that's what we thought was wrong with existing models, which is why we didn't just use one of the existing ones. But the one model we looked at that we felt had the most potential for use in this context was one that Adrian Brown of the Parliamentary Archives published in a book depicted here called Practical Digital Preservation. It's a really good book. It's got this maturity model hidden at the back of it, really. And I don't think it had really been very widely used because it was sort of in the back of a book rather than published online. It was also a few years old, and we wanted to do something to develop it further and enhance it and change it slightly to meet our needs. But we felt it provided quite a flexible framework that we could work with. So we contacted Adrian, and luckily he was very happy for us to take the model and build on it and rename it and use that as a starting point. And he did help giving us feedback throughout as well. So that's great. Yeah, it is a really great book. So do write it down. Do have a look at it. It's a very good introduction to digital preservation. So once we realised we were going down this route for the NDA, we started thinking about this as an opportunity to create a wider benefit for our members. So we thought, well, if we had this maturity model and all of our members used it, we could use it to better understand our members. We could allow our members to benchmark against each other. We could use it to help provide support to them, and perhaps also the results could feed into our own work planning at the DPC. So thinking about how, what briefing day we should hold next, or what publication we should put out, so we could target areas where we felt people needed more help. But we also clearly wanted this model to be available for everyone, not just the NDA, not just our members. We developed it with these guiding principles in mind. So we, as I mentioned, we wanted it to be applicable for any organisations of any size in any sector who had content of long-term value that they were looking after. We wanted it to be agnostic to strategy and solution, based on existing good practice in the field. And this was key. We have called it the rapid assessment model. We do want it to be simple to understand and quick to apply. We don't want organisations to have to spend a week getting their heads around it before they can start measuring themselves. So what's it look like? So we've developed it with these 11 sections, and the 11 sections are split into organisational capabilities and service capabilities. So I'll just let you have a little look at those. So I guess the organisational capabilities are those which apply to how the organisation itself is set up to manage the challenge, whereas the service capabilities are more about the procedures and processes you have in place to deal with the digital stuff that's coming your way. And there's 5 possible maturity levels for each of those sections. So you can score all of them from 0 to 4, with 0 being minimal awareness and 4 being optimised. And I've just included here the basic definitions here for the first section, which is organisational viability. So,
Jenny, sorry to interrupt. We've had a question from an attendee asking if you could just hide the little pop-up that you have at the bottom of your screen.
Oh, hide, yes.
Brilliant.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you. I didn't spot that. So yeah, if you've got minimal awareness of organisational viability, that's kind of fairly easy to imagine what that would look like. For awareness, it just means your organisation is aware of the need to support digital preservation activities. And for basic, we're looking at digital preservation activities being supported and resourced at a basic level within your organisation. Managed, we're looking at those activities being supported, managed and supported. And for optimised, we're looking at something a bit more proactive. So digital preservation activities will be proactively managed, enhanced and developed within your organisation. So the things with maturity score 0 to 1, I think they're fairly easy for you to imagine what that might look like. So minimal awareness, I think we all know what that looks like. Awareness, yeah, you've got an awareness of something but you're not really doing it. But for those last 3 levels, basic, managed and optimised, there's a little ... after them because we've included examples of what that might look like in an organisation for all of those. So this is, for example, what the managed level might look like for organisational viability. I'm not going to read all those out, so do just have a little look. So now the things under these bullet points are all included as examples. They're not things that you necessarily have to have in place yourself. So we put them there so you can get a sense of what digital preservation might look like in your organisation if you're at managed level. But it's very hard to come up with examples which are going to be equally applicable to absolutely everybody who we think might want to use this model. So they're there as a guide. So we really want to stress that we don't want you to use these bullet points as a tick list. You don't have to go through them all and go, yes, I've got that, I've got that, I've got that. You have to look at them and think if that is appropriate for you. If it is, have you got it? If it isn't, is there something else which might sort of fit a similar niche? So there's lots of examples in there that we've enhanced and added. So this is how to use the model. So we would encourage you to work out where you sit currently, looking at those examples, looking at the example statements there. Obviously, you know, as with any maturity modelling exercise, we'd encourage you to be honest and realistic. There's not a great benefit, I think, in just saying, yeah, we're there, we're at the top level and everything, unless you really think you are. And use it as an opportunity to work out where there's gaps and where you could improve. And there's no half marks, so if you're not quite at a level 2, say, you definitely need to keep yourself on a level 1 until you've done enough to move yourself forward to say you're a level 2. As I said already, don't take those examples too literally. They are just there to try and help you, but you don't have to tick them all like a checkbox exercise. Obviously, it isn't a competition, so you don't have to kind of say that you're at the top when you're not. Once you've worked out where you sit currently, have a think about where you would like to be. So again, be realistic. We do say to people you don't have to all aim for the top. So I think when people look at these models first, they think, oh, well, we need to sort of aim for a 4 with everything. But I don't think that's the case. And that's certainly what we're seeing when we get results back from our members, is that they're thinking about this quite carefully and thinking about, well, do we really need to be a 4 for this one, or could we aim to be a 3? So it's designed to be quick and easy to use. We've produced a load of guidance to sit alongside the model. There are templates available. So there's a template at the end of the main document that you could print out and scribble on. There's also an Excel template or a spreadsheet version that you could actually add the scores into yourself, and it automatically creates some visualizations for you. And then we've also got some guidance on what to do next. Oh yeah, thanks for your question, Graham. We can definitely come back to that. So as I mentioned, if you use the spreadsheet, you can enter your results straight into the spreadsheet, which is available to download from our website. And then if you skip to another sheet of the spreadsheet, it will show you visualizations like this based on your scores. So I quite like this one. This is a radar chart. And it shows in blue the current level, so where you are now for an anonymous archive, and the dotted line is where you want to be. That's your target level. And it's quite a nice way of immediately seeing where your gaps might be. And this is the kind of diagram or visualization that I think is really useful for just printing out or putting in a slide that you're going to show to your senior managers, or putting as an illustration in a business case for digital preservation. It's very visual, it's very quick for people to understand what's going on with a diagram like this. So what might you want to do after DPC RAM? So you could share it with colleagues. I think Jan has already said that she's been doing that and using it to start conversation with colleagues. You could include it in a business case for digital preservation to try and get more resource to fill those gaps, as I mentioned. You could use it to help set priorities, so thinking about which areas you'd like to move forward with first. You may want to establish a roadmap or a plan for moving forward. And you may also want to have a look at your preservation policy or strategy, if you've got one, and see if it accurately reflects your aspirations. So as I mentioned before, we don't see DPC RAM as being a one-off exercise. We do recommend that this is something that you carry out annually, though you can do it as frequently or as infrequently as you like. So we're encouraging our members to do it annually. We might move to biannually. We'll see how that pans out. And we're thinking that DPC RAM data from our members will be helpful in showing how long it takes to move forward in digital preservation. So if we keep on collecting data from our members, we can kind of see how quickly the membership as a whole moves up. And those people that shoot up really quickly, perhaps we can learn from them and we can bring them in to talk to us and say, well, this is how we did it. This is how we moved forward so quickly. So that could be really useful to us as well. So there are some benefits that are specific to our members. So members can submit their RAM data to us. We encourage them to do so. And then we can try and understand our members better when providing them with support and advice. We've got kind of a baseline of information about them. So when they come to us for help, we can just check out where they are currently very quickly using DPC RAM. It helps us to plan the DPC programme based on the areas where we think more support's needed. We've actually come up next week with this plan to have a RAM Jam, what we call a RAM Jam, which is an online session where we encourage our members to come and do their RAM sessions with us online, asking questions and doing a bit of anonymous benchmarking along the way. So that's next. It's on the 2nd of June. And members can also ask us for anonymised benchmarking data. So they can say, well, we're here. So say we're a UK university. We're here, but we'd like to know where other UK universities are so that we can compare them. So we can use that in our business case. So we can take that to our leadership team and say, look, we're here and everyone else is here. So can we have some resource to move up? And we do that as well. But of course, I will stress it's all anonymised. So we don't give away the names of the other organisations whose data we're sharing. We just give them a aggregated set of results for UK universities. But of course there's benefits for everyone, so RAM is freely available for you all to use, the model and the worksheet, and any group of organisations could use RAM as a basis for benchmarking or knowledge exchange, so you could do that within this group if you wanted to. We've also got RAM currently being translated into, I think, 3 other languages. I can't tell you which ones, though I'm feeling Japanese might be one of them. So that's quite exciting. So that's it for the presentation. I've totally lost track with what's going on in the chat, but if there's any questions, I'm very happy to answer them.
We've had a few, Jenny, on the question section, and also from another member who can't submit to the question section. So we'll start with that one so I don't forget. A member has asked, does this model enable generation of RAG ratings for each area based on both current position and various what-if scenarios, e.g. if particular remedial actions are taken?
So I don't actually know what a RAG rating is.
Red, amber, green, I presume.
Oh, okay. Not really. I mean, it's. I guess you could use it to do your own. So yeah, it enables you to see where you are now and where you'd like to be, and then I guess from that you would prioritise and say, well, you know, this is a real red issue for us because we're way far away from where we want to be on this particular one, and that helps you set your work plan. But yeah, I mean, you can do whatever you want with the results. Hopefully that's helps answer your question, but we haven't implemented anything specific around RAG ratings.
Excellent. Okay, next question on the screen for you, Jenny. Please, can we see the capabilities again, please? There's a slide which had some tables. I'd like to hear more about what those capabilities are and how they would work, and that's had 2 votes.
Sure. Just find that slide. Is this the slide you were thinking of? Yeah.
As I said, I'm happy to share the slides after the session, and this session is being recorded, so you could revisit it at your own leisure.
Yeah, and I think so. So if you download the model itself from our website, that should also help answer your question. So this is just a summary of those different capabilities, but there's more information if you look at the full document. So as I said, the organisational ones are kind of the more broader things that your organisation has in place around. So organisational viability includes things like whether you've got the staffing, the right structure, the resourcing for your digital preservation activities. B is policy and strategy. So that's whether you have the policies and strategies and procedures in place which govern what you're doing in your digital preservation activities. Legal basis is relatively straightforward, I think. Well, it's not straightforward, but it's very straightforward to understand. So it's all about the contracts and licensing, other legal rights and responsibilities that you need to bear in mind, and whether those are effectively managed. IT capability is whether you have the information technology capabilities to do digital preservation. That can actually be a real barrier for many of our members. And continuous improvement is about how often you review this. So how often you work out, you kind of take out an exercise like this to work out where you are and where you'd like to be. And community is, well, we feel that digital preservation is something that people can't do alone. I think they get a lot of benefits from being part of a broader community. So that community doesn't have to be the DPC. There's lots of other communities out there around particular types of software, particular open source tools, particular types of data like web archiving. So it's about how you engage with the community and share your knowledge with that wider community and input in order to facilitate digital preservation. And then the service capabilities as well, which hopefully are self-explanatory. You should be able to see those, but do shout if you want me to describe those in any more detail.
The person posing the question has said, "This is really comprehensive, great work. We'll definitely take a look at the template." So
Great,
we can move on to the next question. So it'll show on the screen now. I may have missed it being mentioned, but what is the licensing for this model? Open, Creative Commons, membership only? That's had 2 upvotes to answer.
Oh, that's a really good question. I actually don't know. I mean, it's freely available for anyone to use. It's certainly not membership only. And people that want to translate it for us are generally getting in touch with us and saying, can we translate it? And we're saying yes. Perhaps that's something we need to look at. Sorry, I don't know the answer. I guess if you have a follow-up question, whoever asked that one about what you might like to do with it, I'd be really happy to talk through what you want to do, and then I can say whether that's appropriate or not.
Excellent. And we've had a member in the chat section who said the model can be used by any organisation with a need to preserve digital information for the long term. It should be possible to apply it regardless of the sector in which you work or the type of information that you are preserving. The maturity levels are based on existing good practice and try to be agnostic to particular preservation strategies or approaches.
That's right. So those were the guiding
on the website.
Principles. Yeah.
Excellent. So move on.
We want to encourage people to use it at the end of the day. We don't want to put barriers up for people using it.
Yeah. And the last question, Jenny, that's had 5 votes. Are any local authorities DPC members yet?
No. Sadly not, no. We'd love them to be, and we have had conversations with local authorities. But there's always a resourcing issue, I think. The membership fee is, I guess, the barrier for them when they have reduced resources and so many demands on how they're going to use those resources. So no, I guess the nearest we have to that is one of our members is actually ARA, which is the Archives and Records Association. So they're a member, and I would guess that some local authorities are members of ARA, and so some local authorities are benefiting from some of the things we do through ARA's membership, rather than through direct membership themselves.
Okay. And we asked the question earlier about licensing. There's another comment. I'm aware that as a commercial business, I want to be clear that if we use it and make money, we're allowed to.
Oh right. Yeah. I mean, I think other people are already doing that. So I don't think that's a problem at all. I mean, we just want it to be something that's useful. and is a way that the community can talk to each other. So we have our supporter organisations, that some of the organisations, for instance, who supply digital preservation software and services. They're already using it, and they're using it to talk to customers. They're looking at how adopting their solution can help move you forward with DPC RAM, for example. So I think what you're suggesting is no different from that. So absolutely, yeah, anyone can use it for any purpose.
Excellent. We had another question with regard to membership fees of the DPC, and I've sent along the criteria and fees link from the website. Hopefully that's up to date and the information is available there to anyone in the chat section. I guess that leads me nicely onto the IRMS. We see that there was lots of people joining this session, some of you who I know and some who I don't. If you're not a member yet, please do check out our website. There are lots of really useful toolkits, COVID-19 resources, useful information, other webinar sessions that have been run on various topics. We've had lots of comments in the chat that people are really excited that we're getting all of these online sessions in. And long may that continue even after the lockdown is lifted for the majority of us. So please check the website out if you haven't joined already. Please do consider the value of joining for yourself and your organisation. Jenny, anything else from you?
I'm just looking back at the chat and loving all the suggestions to translate into Scouse and Geordie.
Yeah, as Joanna said, we're multilingual in this group. Lots of us speak in different accents and languages.
Absolutely, I love it.
Brilliant. Okay, I think we've had another question. Going to pop that on the screen now. Does the model complement TRAC criteria and checklists?
TRAC criteria, yes. I think it does. I don't think it does it directly. I haven't seen a direct mapping between DPC RAM and TRAC. I mean, as you may know, TRAC is a hugely complicated, an in-depth standard. That's a formal certification standard, and an ISO standard as well, I believe. And there's something like 86 different criteria that you have to look at in a lot of detail, and it's very, very specific. RAM is quite a different beast, quite literally. So it's just a maturity model. It's not a certification standard. It's much more lightweight. You can do it in an hour, perhaps. I know someone who's done it in 20 minutes, but he was very quick. Whereas TRAC, you'd need weeks to do. So I would say that RAM would be a useful first step before you started tackling something like TRAC. You might do RAM and end up never tackling TRAC because not many people do, because it's so huge and cumbersome and quite hard to do. So I do think they're complementary for sure. They'll definitely be moving you in the same direction and in the right direction. But I haven't done a direct mapping.
Excellent. Jana just said, thanks, Jenny, for the talk. Well done, Iram, and thanks to everyone for attending. She has to log off. But she's happy to be contacted about digital preservation and experiences of using RAM. The details are on the IRMS website for anyone in the chat function that is interested in seeing that.
Thanks, Jana.
And I think we're all done with answering the questions, unless anyone has any other questions.
No, so I just encourage people to just go away and take a look. And as I say, if you just set aside an afternoon or a morning, download the model, have a look at it, see if it's going to be of use to you. But hopefully it's not too onerous a task to do it. That was certainly what we were aiming for when we created it. And we're very happy to take feedback. We've collected some comments together from people who have been using it so far. We've noted some things that we already think that maybe we might change in a second version. So I'm not sure when the second version will come. We don't want to do it too frequently, but we're certainly keeping a log of feedback and comments and things we might change next time. So we're really happy to hear from you all.
Excellent. Thanks, Jenny. One more comment in the chat section. Is this in a digital model anywhere?
I'm not sure I understand the question. Is it in a digital model?
An application?
No, I mean we've got a spreadsheet. Is that what you mean? So there's an Excel spreadsheet you can download and enter your details into, and that's what produces the visualizations. I'm not sure if that answers your question.
Yes, it does. Thanks.
Great.
Another comment saying, thank you, Jenny, really helpful session. I shall be trying out the model very soon.
Great. I'm glad to hear it was useful. Thanks, everybody, for coming along. I'm sorry about the internet connection problems.
Oh, no, it's not an issue.
Yes. I've done so many webinars and meetings since lockdown, and that's never happened until now. So it's just typical, isn't it?
It's typical, yeah. Well, thank you so much, Jenny. It was great to have you at our first Lunch and Learn webinar. Really interesting topic, and I hope people do go away and look at the model and see how it applies. Do benchmark yourselves and come back with any comments you have. I'll be sending out the link again to this webinar, and the link in the original webinar registration email includes the link to the website, the DPC and the RAM model, with lots more useful material.
Great, thanks.
Excellent. Okay, well, have a great rest of the day, everyone. She'll give you back 7 more minutes of your time. Take care.
Yeah, bye everyone. Thanks for coming.
Bye.